What's up, folks? Never been a big fan of Black History Month because it's a poor excuse to cram a couple hundred years of Black history into the shortest month of the year. But it is often an excuse to take a look at films like Judas and the Black Messiah, which we're going to review on this episode of The Monitors. Currently in theaters and on HBO Max is the historical drama Judas and the Black Messiah, which was directed by Shaka King and written by King along with Will Burson and producers Kenny and Keith Lucas, who were the driving force behind bringing the story to the screen. The story is inspired by actual events and centers on those events leading up to the assassination of Black Panther Party chairman Fred Hampton, who led the Chicago chapter in the late 1960s. What's interesting about this particular drama is that Keith and Kenny Lucas focused much of the story on William O'Neill, who was the FBI informant who was instrumental in setting Hampton up for the pre-dawn raid that took his life. The telling of this story is dynamic. Not only does it bring to light the life of a larger-than-life figure that was Hampton, that history remembers as little more than a footnote, but it also tells the story of a man in O'Neill who, on the surface, is easily dismissible as human garbage, but the film allows us to see the deeper psychology of the man and understand many of the decisions that he made. In the opening of the film, we learn that the FBI is targeting Fred Hampton, fearing that he could be a Black Messiah, and that he could unite the FBI's domestic enemies, and they weren't wrong. Meanwhile, O'Neill is a street hustler who boosts cars by pretending to be an FBI agent, and gets caught in the process, leaving him no option but to spy on the Panthers at the behest of FBI agent Roy Mitchell. This is the synopsis. The story is history. The film is so much more. First off, the film's portrayal of Hampton is an education in and of itself. Hampton was only 21 at the time of his death, but in the film we see he was a strategic, practical thinker, a motivator and uniter of men, and was a true servant of the people. He was fierce but focused. The film also depicts him uniting white and Latino groups as well as black groups for a very formidable force. Daniel Kaluuya turns in a performance that is nothing short of masterful. In addition to recreating Hampton's mannerisms, gestures, and speech patterns, he absolutely brings an intensity and presence to his performance that propels the story. Kaluuya makes you feel like you know Hampton. I think it is Kaluuya's best performance to date, and it's Oscar-worthy, no doubt. The second component of the film is the aforementioned portrayal of William O'Neill. The film recreates an interview that O'Neill gave for the 1990 installment of the documentary Eyes on the Prize, in which he recounts his time infiltrating the Black Panther Party. Much of what appears on screen about O'Neill and his time with the Panthers is informed by this interview. What the film does brilliantly is puts us in O'Neill's shoes. At first glance, it is very easy to judge him. But watching the film objectively and honestly, you might find yourself wondering what you might have done in his place. The film meticulously takes you through the paces so you can see his internal conflict, and the times when he is clearly playing both sides just to make the most of a bad situation. LaKeith Stanfield is technically brilliant and is close to perfect in the role. Stanfield allows us access to all of O'Neill's beats and moments and shows us his internal struggle. He was able to understand and illustrate the difference between the things that O'Neill says and the things that he does. Stanfield's performance is the linchpin of the film. Like in the play Othello, his actions drive the story's narrative much like that of Iago. Unlike Iago, Stanfield's O'Neill is a reluctant player. Stanfield's performance is required for the film to work at all. Kaluuya's performance makes the film transcendent. And then these men lead an incredible ensemble cast that deserve equal credit in making Messiah a masterpiece. Dominique Fitchback gets a huge shout out as Deborah Johnson, Hampton's significant other and the mother of his child. Kaluuya and Fishback's chemistry makes their relationship solid on screen and is essential for making us feel the sting of Hampton's assassination. Some other familiar faces would be Algie Smith and Ashton Sanders, who also turn in solid performances. Some other notable appearances from screen veterans would be Jesse Plemons as Agent Mitchell, who was perfectly equal parts menace and manipulation as only Plemons can be. Martin Sheen appears as J. Edgar Hoover under heavy makeup, and Lil Rel Howery pops in for a creepy, unsettling appearance as an FBI contact, which brings 3 people back from the cast of Get Out. For this film, it is pretty much about the journey, like going to see Malcolm X or even Titanic. You know how the story ends, but the telling of the story, better yet, the witnessing of the story, is where the enrichment happens. Shaka King's direction is formidable. Messiah has a lot of moving parts, and at times it feels like there's a lot to keep track of, especially with just over a 2-hour running time, but it works. Deserves credit for introducing Fred Hampton to the world. It gets high marks for telling the story of a Judas that might be more relatable than we might want to admit, and yet successfully doesn't evoke too much sympathy for him, just understanding. And those two storylines blend as seamlessly in the narrative structure as they did historically. This is definitely one you should see, and having seen it twice, I strongly suggest a theatrical viewing on a big screen, because it's a big story. And that's going to do it for today's episode. Have you checked out Judas and the Black Messiah yet? If you have, what did you think? Please leave your comments below. Definitely want to know what you think of this one. Also, click that like button if you would to help us out. And if you're not subscribed yet, click that subscribe button and click the bell to be notified about new content. Well, that's it for today. In the meantime, till we meet again, be good to yourselves, be good to each other. Peace, and we're out. God bless.